The Gemara had asked, L'cheda, why do you say that there was, I'm going back a little bit, why do you say that Abchia says that there were only 8 Avis, meaning 24, because you count the Avis in the Kraven, that apostle, La'edis, you have to count the B'nayim, which would make it another 8, the children. And then the Chasnaim, the son-in-laws, is another 8, it's 24. L'cheda, you should count also the grandchildren, which would make it 32. Says the Gemara answered that who b'nei v'chasnai means chasnai mamish. And what it means, mamish is son-in-law, and why? Meaning it's the second level, it's not the third level of son-in-law. So why do you call it chasim b'nei? Why do you call it as consider it as a third level? Because since he's an outsider, he's not a blood relative. In fact, if a chassan is considered as outsider, as a third level, havalei shlishi b'sheni. So it's considered the chassan is considered as a shlishi, and to his cousin he's a sheni. But Rav hirshes shlishi b'sheni, and Rav was marsher a shlishi b'sheni. Says Gemara al Rav the Amik Rabbi Lazar. Rather, Rav holds like Rabbi Lazar. Tanya we learned from Raisa. Rabbi Lazar, Aimak Shem Shachiyaba lo Yahidli, just like Achiyaba, a father's brother cannot testify concerning me. Who b'nei v'chasnei, nor could his son or son-in-law testify against me. Kach ben Achiyaba lo Yahidli, who b'nei, so too the father's brother's son cannot testify concerning me. Meaning nor his son, nor his son-in-law. The Blazer clearly holds, like Rav, that a shlishi is disqualified from testifying. Sagt die Gemara, but it's still a shlishi b'sheni. And Rabbi Lazar says it's possible. Rav Asher shlishi b'sheni, where Rav does say a shlishi b'sheni is good. So how then could Rabbi Lazar look as a marker to Rav's psak? And the Gemara Rav, so like say bechada, polygol bechada. Rav holds like Rabbi Lazar that a shlishi b'rishon is possible edus. But he argues with Rabbi Lazar in this that he passes a shlishi b'sheni and he says it's kosher. In fact, you want my time in the Rav. What's the reason of Rav that he passes a shlish b'rishon and he's master a shlish b'sheni? Damakra, because it's since the pasuk says lo yumsa avos al banim, that is a sheni b'rishon, ubanim, and which is cousins a sheni b'sheni. L'rabis the vav of ubanim l'rabis teracha comes to add a third. The vav of ubanim adds another generation that even the grandchildren are possible to testify against the great uncle. That's a shlish b'rishon. But shlish b'sheni we don't learn out from this pasuk. Says the Gemara Rabbi Lazar holds. Rabbi Lazar, what's the reason of Rabbi Lazar? Because Rabbi Lazar says al banim amachmana. The Torah says psuli the aves, throw it. This psul on the children also, that whatever's possible, obvious is possible abanim. And therefore, since we're mabah from the vav, ubanim, that grandchildren are possible to testify against their great uncle, like Rav, and Bela, the apostle, even to his son, which is a sheni bishlishi. Rav Nachman said, Achi chamesi lo yoidli, my mother-in-law's brother cannot testify concerning me. Ben achi chamesi lo yoidli, my mother-in-law's brother, son, cannot testify concerning me. Ben achi chamesi lo yoidli, my mother-in-law's sister's son cannot testify concerning me.
25 or 4.
The Tana Tuna and the Tana of our Mishnah has also taught the same thing. Where do we see the cases are the same? So his sister's husband, his father's sister's husband, and his mother's sister's husband, their sons, and the son-in-laws cannot testify. They cannot testify. So like the Gemara, Where do we see it's the same case? So he says, very simple. One, the Mishnah states that one sister's husband and the son-in-law cannot testify about him. That's the same case of Rav Nachman, that the mother-in-law's brother cannot testify about the son-in-law. The second case, the Mishnah says, one's father's sister's husband and their son-in-law cannot testify about him. Same case was stated by Rav Nachman. The mother-in-law's brother, son, cannot testify about the son-in-law. You have another case, the Mishnah says that the mother's sister's husband and their son-in-law cannot testify about him. And Rav Nachman said that the mother-in-law's sister's son cannot testify about the son-in-law. So you see, all these cases are similar. Amar Abashi, when we were in the house of Ula, yes, what is the halacha in regard to one's father-in-law's brother? Ben Achi Achamav Mao. What is the halacha when gave one's father-in-law's brother's son? Ben Achis Chami Mao. What is the halacha when gave to one's father-in-law's sister's son? Amalan. Well, it said to us, we learned this in the Mishnah. Achiv v'achi. Aviv v'achi imeheinu of neim v'chasneim. One's mother, his father's brother, and his mother's brother, their sons, and their son-in-laws. So you go. So he says, the case of one's father-in-law's brother is the same as the Mishnah's case of one's brother's son-in-law. Or there's other case, the son of the son's father-in-law brother is the same case of the Mishnah's case of one's father's brother's son-in-law, and so forth. Zag the Gemara, Rav Ikla Lemizben. Rav went to a certain place to buy gvilei. He went to buy parchment. But when what is the halacha regarding whether one can testify concerning his stepson's wife? When his stepson's wife was involved in a litigation with someone who claims to own some of her nichsim miluk, meaning the property which she brings into the marriage. The property itself is hers, but her husband ordinarily has the rights to use it and the produce. Okay, in this case, however, it must be that the husband, meaning the stepson, had signed away his rights to the property in question. Otherwise, he would be considered to be the litigant in this case. And his stepfather would certainly be disqualified from testifying about it. So let's see what happened over here. So he says over here, what is the halacha regarding whether one may testify concerning his stepson's wife? Now I've answered, in Surah they answered, a husband is like the wife. But in Pumbedisa, they say a wife is like the husband. So these are two different ways of saying the same principle. A husband and wife from a single unit
It doesn't connect.
in regard to
I'm gonna be the red one.
to blood relationship. Since husband and wife are a unit, the stepfather is like his wife, who is the daughter-in-law's actual mother-in-law. He's like the daughter-in-law's actual father-in-law's daughter-in-law.
Don't mention you're gonna bring the collar in and then
He is like the daughter-in-law's actual father-in-law and may not testify concerning her. Anyway, Zak the Gemara.
just don't bring it in because I don't need
Where do we learn out that a wife is like her husband in regard to the degree of relationship? It says, do not uncover the nakedness of your father's brother. Do not approach his wife. She is your aunt. And so you want to ask, but she's not his uncle's wife, rather than his true aunt, meaning she's the uncle's wife, not the true aunt. Yet the Torah calls her a true aunt. So here you see that a wife is like the husband in regards to relationship. And his mother's husband, he, his son, and his son-in-law's apostle. So the Gemara wonders, why was it necessary to teach that a mother's husband's son is disqualified? One's mother's husband's son is the same as one's brother. At this point, the Gemara assumes that the Mishnah's case of one's mother's husband's son refers to the son of the husband from the mother. But that son is the person's half-brother from the same mother. So the Gemara, no. The Gemara answers, if the Mishnah's mentions of one's mother's husband's son was necessary only for the case of the brother's brother, meaning the stepfather's son from another woman. This son is the stepson's brother's brother. When the stepson has a half-brother from a common mother, and that half-brother is the half-brother from a common father of the stepfather's son. So although the stepson shares no parent with his brother's brother, he's still considered related to, and since his own half-brother sharing the same mother is a half-brother to that son sharing the same father. So the Gemara, and you can look in the diagram that the art scroll brings. Zok the Gemara, Rav Chizda, Asher, Ba'achi ha'och. Rav Chizda qualified, said it's kasha, brother's brother, to testify. They said to him, I did not hear the psak of Rav Mivya, meaning disqualifying a brother's brother. Amalahu. Rav Chizda replied, I did not hear. So the Gemara explains, Rav Chizda's answer meant, as if to say, I don't agree to it. If so, that if Rav Chizda does not hold of Rabbi Yima's explanation of the Mishnah, then our original question returns. The Mishnah's case of one's mother's son is the same as the case of one's brother. And for the Gemara, Tana, the Tana states the psul of the brother from the father's side. And then he states the psul of the brother from the mother's side. The Mishnah's case of brother refers to the brother of a common father. And the case of the mother's husband's son refers to the brother from a common mother. Okay, the Gemara says a psak regarding a possible form of a relative. Chizda said, the father of the groom and the father of the bride may testify against each other. And they are not really connected to one another more than a barrel that has a cover that doesn't really fit the barrel. That's how they're connected. Said, Adam leishta arusa. A person could testify concerning his arusa wife, his engaged wife. This was said if his testimony was to remove money from her. But if his testimony is to get money for her, then he's not believed. And he says Pashut because because the husband eventually is going to marry her. So he wants that money. He wants to have that benefit of the money because that she brings into the marriage. So that's why he'll testify that falsely when it comes Yuli to bring money in. The Gemara, however, slugs up and says, but is it not so? It doesn't make a difference if he's taking out money from her or bringing in that either case he's not going to be believed. What is your reasoning for allowing an arusa to testify concerning his arusa? Like Chibra Abami said in Ishta arusa, if his wife is arusa, then lo yoinan. He does not mourn her as an oina if she passed away. Nor does he become tummy for her if he is a kohen. And similarly, the others dies lo yoinanes. She does not mourn over him, and she cannot be matam herself to him. If she dies, he does not inherit her. If he dies, she collects the ksuba. But we see from here that in many ways, an arusa is not considered related to her husband. Similarly, we should consider them unrelated in regard to testimony and allow an arus to testify to the detriment of an arusa either way. Okay, there is no comparison for there regarding the halachis of Tuma and Yerusha. The Torah made them contingent on close relation and was tailored in and contingent on close relationship. Torah says that a kohen cannot contaminate himself with a mace except for his own flesh, who's close to him.
Yeah, how your kid?
Which the Gemara interprets that as referring to his wife regarding inheritance. The Torah states, what did the Torah say over there? That his flesh, who is close to him from his family, he will inherit her. So you see, side by Yerusha, side by Amaze, it has to be close relationship. Here, however, it is because of the closeness of feeling that a relative is disqualified from testifying. And the artist indeed feels close to his arusa, therefore a husband is inherently puzzled from testifying concerning his arusa. And a stepson alone, and we don't say his son or his son-in-law. His stepson alone is disqualified from testifying. Rabbi Yossi says his brother-in-law, and it was taught in a different place. The brother-in-law alone is puzzled. Rabbi Yehuda says his stepson. The Gemara attempts to determine the meaning of each Tana state. What is each Tana say? If you're saying this is what he's saying, Rabbi Yehuda says first Brisa, his stepson alone is puzzled, and he agrees the same applies to a brother-in-law. And Rabbi Yossi comes to say his brother-in-law alone is puzzle, and the same applies to his stepson. Could this be the kavanah? Rabbi Yossi too does not mean to dispute the Tanakama in the first brisa, but rather add brother-in-law. Both Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi agree that in the cases of a stepson and a brother-in-law, the psul does not extend to their own sons and sons-in-laws. Sagt die Gemara, but then our Mishnah, which states brother-in-law, he, his son, and his son-in-law's apostle money, whose sheet is the following: It cannot follow Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi because they don't add the sons and the son-in-laws. The halacha kama. Rather, this is what each time is saying. The stepson is alone apostle, but with regard to her brother-in-law, he, his son, and his son-in-law are apostle. Thus, Rabbi Yossi came to say, his brother-in-law alone is apostle, but when his stepson, he, his son, and his son-in-law are apostle. Says the Gemara, could this be the kavanah? Then what was the brisa that was taught by Rabbi Chia? They are 8 principal, all others that are apostle as relatives, apostle to testify, which includes 24 individual cases, meaning the sons and son-in-laws. Come on. Whose shita does the brisa follow? Like Rabbi Yehuda. Since both agreed that only one of the two are disqualified alone, and we don't include the sons and the son-in-laws, Alachi Kamar. Rather, this is what the Tana is saying. Rabbi Yehuda says that his stepson alone is apostle, but when he gave it to the brother-in-law, he, his son, and the son-in-law are all apostle. And Rabbi Yossi came to say that his brother-in-law alone is disqualified, and certainly his stepson alone is disqualified. So what is he saying over here? That according to this, since the stepson is one level removed from the brother-in-law, so Rabbi Yehuda holds that only a stepson is an exception to the rule that the son and son-in-laws are apostle. Whereas Rabbi Yossi holds that both stepson and brother-in-law are exceptions. Zog the Gemara, Umaslis Rabbi Yehuda and Brais Rabbi Yossi. Accordingly, the Mishnah follows the Shita Rabbi Yehuda, and the Brais follows that the Brais that was taught by Rabbi Chia follows the Shita Rabbi Yossi. Since both stepsons and brother-in-laws are exceptions to the rule, the Brais is left with only 8 principal relatives who are disqualified together with the sons and son-in-laws. There was a certain gift, a star matana, on which 2 brother-in-laws were signed. The husbands of 2 sisters were signed as the witnesses. Now, although a star signed by 2 relatives is possible, some Rabbi Yossi thought to validate it. Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel Halach Rabbi Yossi. Since Rabbi Yehuda said the name of Shmuel, that the halacha follows Rabbi Yossi. Brother-in-law are not disqualified as relatives since they do not stand to inherit one another. Amalei Abaye said back, from what do you know that Shmuel was referring to the Shita of Rabbi Yossi al Mishnah, who parcels one's brother-in-law to testify, since he's not Yedesh. Dilma Rabbi Yossi B'rais the possible Gisa. Perhaps Shmuel was referring to the Shita of Rabbi Yossi in the B'raisa, where he disqualifies the testimony of a brother-in-law. Rabbi Yossi answered, do not think that Shmuel once explained what type of a brother-in-law are disqualified from testifying. Such as me and Pinchas, who are brothers and brother-in-laws.
I don't know. She didn't get back to me.
He brings down the case. Shmuel and his brother Pinchas were married to 2 sisters. But proper brother-in-laws are generally allowed to testify. In fact, maybe Shmuel said the example of me and Pinchas simply in order to illustrate the case of one's brother-in-law. Amalei Rabbi Yossi thereupon considered his understanding of Shmuel's ruling and said that the one receiving the gift, Zil Kanya Be'ed Mesira, go and acquire the gift, the matana, by producing Eid Mesira. Eid watch how the document was given to you, Rabbi Elazar, in accordance with Rabbi Elazar, who says, Dik is the Eid Mesira. Abai, however, asked on this. Rabbi Abba had said, Rabbi Elazar agrees that a star, which is inherently fraudulent inside the star, even if there were valid witnesses for the Mesira, how then will producing Eid Mesira help that he should be have the ownership of the gift? Amalei Zil go loy shafkilei deisvinalach. They do not allow me to give the gift to you. Your document signed by related witnesses is worthless. Rabbi Yehuda says that if one's daughter were relatives who had become distant from when their sister's Marukva's wife died, his former brother-in-laws came before him to Bezdin. Amalahu, Marukva said to him, Psilna lechuladina, I am disqualified from rendering judgment for you. Amalei, they said to him, my daita, what is your reasoning of disqualifying yourself? So, you might have Yehuda, according to Rabbi Yehuda, that one is ineligible to be a dayan, the relatives of his dead wife, if she left children. And he so now Masina, you got him over. For we will bring you a letter from the Chacham of Eretz Yisrael, which states that Allah is not like Rabbi Yehuda. Amalhu Ma'ukra said, Atu bekabel akira idabakna bechu, was I permanently glued to you with a cob of wax when I married your sister? I agree that our relation was terminated when she died. Actually, I have not said that I am disqualified from rendering judgment for you for any reason. Other than I am concerned that you won't listen to the psak, since you perceive me as your peer.